Hey everybody, welcome back to the wonderful world of Icewind Dale. It has been many months since we last talked, and we're gonna catch everybody up. So let's dig in. Welcome back. As I mentioned in the intro, it's good to have everybody back here. We're gonna talk about Icewind Dale and what exactly my party has been up to. It has been a very long time since we posted. Lots has been happening, lots of real-world stuff and in-game things. We're going to talk about that. So, rather than covering everything session by session, I think I'm just going to kind of cover some topics overall so that we can get caught up and get into more prep videos. Where we last left off, the party was about to head into Targos in hopes of finding out more information about old Bitey's Riddle. Let's talk about what happened in Targos. The party headed there where they completed the Nature Spirits quest by finding some Chwingas in Elva's cabin. And I believe Elva ran into them just on the outskirts of town, told them about her cabin and how she had been having troubles. So they went and investigated the cabin where they found the Chwingas, got a couple. I think they went into Targos, got some like wildlife cages, and brought the Chwingas in the cages all the way back to Bryn Shander and handed those off to Danica. While they were in Targos, they also ran into Boy, the dog, who led them to Keegan, and they went and had a conversation with Keegan where he asked for help finding his missing husband, who was in Caer-Konig, leading a party to head up on top of Kelvin's cairn. My party said, we're busy right now, but we'll try and catch up with you at Caer-Konig, as Keegan said he was going to head that general direction in hopes of finding his husband. So they said, not now, maybe later, fingers crossed. From Targos, they eventually headed to Easthaven, where they ran into Sir Baldwin Stoneforge, who is Quark. If you'll remember, Quark is our cleric of Abathor. Sir Baldwin Stoneforge is the paladin of Abathor, so there's kind of a rivalry between the two of them, and Sir Baldwin Stoneforge owns a pawn shop in Easthaven, so there's some back and forth. Really fun time between the two of them, back and forth kind of banter between the two of them. It was a lot of fun. While they were in Easthaven, they ran to the town center, the town hall, and they were asked to help with some missing pieces of Chardalyn that were found in the town hall. They traced that back to a Duergar outpost, went through the Duergar outpost. It's a whole section in Chapter 1. I've been tweaking pretty much everything. I should probably mention this, but I've been tweaking pretty much everything to fit what's going on with my party and using the book itself mostly as a campaign setting or guide rather than an actual adventure path. They ran into the Duergar at the outpost. They went through the outpost trying to find more Chardalyn. They found pieces of Chardalyn, returned them back to the town hall in Easthaven. When they entered Easthaven for the first time, they actually saw Dazan burning for killing the adventurers, and they have been learning bits and pieces. This is going to tie into Jack, who is our herengon bard, his backstory a little bit, as he hates corruption and leadership and kind of like the system and the man. Dazan has been doing some research into the Netherese. The Netherese, a long time ago in my campaign and in my setting for Icewind Dale, a long time ago they were oppressed and they overcame that and stuck it to the man kind of a thing, and they would talk all about rooting out corruption. There's a poem and song that I wrote up that I've been using and have been giving to Jack in his dreams. So Jack, as part of his backstory, he really hates that. He's actually got thrown in jail because of corruption. That we're tying the Dazan, Netherese, all of that, Lost Spire that comes into the next Chapter 2, as well as Yithrin at the very end. We'll tie all of that into Jack's backstory. So that's kind of what we're going on with that. They've been doing some digging into Dazan and into the Netherese, but not a ton yet. I expect that'll come more in the future. While they were in Easthaven, they also attended a meeting of the Order of Arl. And they were curious about what exactly was going on, and they've been being recruited by members here and there, and they decided to go check it out. So they went to a meeting where Kethra, who is the leader of the order, was there. She kind of just sat there, and other members kind of preached about Oral and what being a member is all about. They also saw the ruffian who was at Jack's concert and started the riot, which got Jack thrown in jail. So they met him and just kind of said what was up with that. And the real reason for the whole riot was a distraction so that they could go in and alter some records in the town hall. My party hasn't figured that out yet. They may in the future. But they did see and meet Kethra Icefang. Kethra went back into the back of the temple. Kaima went and followed Kethra. In the back, Kethra was talking with some weird voices. They haven't investigated that very much yet either, but that's another little trail that will lead into Kaima's background. From Easthaven, we're going to talk about what happened in Caer-Konig. So, part of Easthaven, they went and raided the Duergar outpost, which is sort of near Kelvin's cairn. So on the way, they ran into Caer-Konig, found Keegan. They talked to Keegan for a little bit and said, hey, we're headed this way. We'll keep an eye out. So they raided the Duergar outpost, and then they came back, and they found Garrett in Kelvin's cairn. Roary was raised by Yetis. That's her secret. So they ran into Rory's uncle, I believe it was Greg, in the Kelvin's cairn cave, which is part of the book. They ran into him and talked to him about what's going on. They found out that Rory's dad has been kidnapped by Duergar and is held at some outpost, which happens to be Sunblight, and where my players are headed currently. They ran into Greg, and I think Meg was her aunt. They ran into the two of them in the Yeti cave. Rather than having it being a combat encounter, I thought that'd be more interesting, and it ties into Rory's background. So that's going to be kind of fun. We're almost to the apex of that. Should be a lot of fun for my player, who is my wife, to figure out, to find her family. That's part of the reason they're headed to Sunblight right now, is to rescue Rory's father. That's what happened in Caer-Konig. Next, let's talk about the Cold-Hearted Killer questline. And this is something that I found on Reddit and highly recommend for anyone who is running Icewind Dale. It is a fun little twist on the Sefik Caltro murders. They were recruited by Hlyn Trollbane, who is a member of the Arctic Blades, as is one of my players. Arctic Blades is something that I just added to the campaign. It's basically like a CIA type organization where they train you and send you on your way. Tavar was recruited by Hlyn to go investigate these murders. She had some leads as to what was going on, so they've been investigating this. They come to find out that there's some corruption in the lottery system for the Order of Arl, and they've been tracking it. They were tracking that down for a long time between the different 10 towns, and eventually they figured out that it was Sefik that was doing the murders, and he was doing it because people were avoiding the lottery or paying to get out of the lottery, and Arl wanted her revenge, basically, is why Sefik was he was killing those who were paying their way out of the lottery. So they eventually ran into him, and they had the final confrontation in Goodmead. It was a big epic long battle. It was a lot of fun, and they eventually did kill Sefik, and Arl was pretty upset and sent them a message basically saying, watch your backs from now on. While they were in Goodmead, the party found out about the death of the town speaker due to the Verbeeg. My party said, yes, we will go head in, talk to the Verbeeg. So they get into the Verbeeg lair, and instead of having a fight, they have some conversation where they make a deal with the Verbeeg. The Verbeeg's favorite snack is moose, and they've been really eyeing this white moose, so it leads to another quest. If they can bring back some white moose meat, then the Verbeeg will leave the party alone, as long as they continue to provide food. So they made that deal with the Verbeeg and headed back to Goodmead, told the people, and then the party decided that Quark should run for town speakership. With the different quests and things, they set up some business with various members throughout 10 towns, including the Lonelywood town speaker. They talked about getting jobs for making the barrels and stuff for the mead, and Quark has kind of been building this huge mead empire throughout the entirety of the campaign, which has been a lot of fun. And so he's been making connections and hiring people, trying to hire people throughout 10 towns, and using all of that to get the upper hand in the election in Goodmead. He did end up winning the election. He ran against a couple of locals, and one of them happened to be a member of the Order of Arl, and that didn't go very well. They weren't very upset. They actually have been doing some dealings with Torga as well, who is kind of sketchy, and asked Torga to take one of the other people who was running and keep them away for a while so they couldn't make their speech the night before the election, and she did so, no problem, and that person is still missing, but will eventually show back up. They really debated, my party did, for a long time about whether or not to just kill him or take him off, but eventually they decided, let's just kidnap him for a while, and then we can release him. But Quark did end up winning the election, and so he's got some sway in 10 towns now, the entire party does. While they were in Goodmead, Jack ran into another herengon who has deep ties to the Netherese and to Dazan. She grew up, her grandmother would sing her this song that Jack has been hearing in his dreams that has ties to the Netherese, and so that's where he learned the actual lyrics to the song that he's been hearing. From there, let's jump over to Lonelywood and some of the things that happened. So they met with Nimsy Huddle while they were there looking for the white moose. Quark was very quick to ask Nimsy for business dealings to provide lumber for the casks and things that he would need for his mead business. So they went, found the white moose, took care of that problem for all of the people of Lonelywood, and then they also took that meat back to the Verbeeg, and on top of that, they made some headway with Nimsy Huddle and getting some business going there. So that's kind of what happened in Lonelywood. And then we jumped into some of the Chapter 2, really the only Chapter 2 quest that they have done so far has been Karkolohk. The very first quest they did was the Foaming Mugs quest, where they went and got the iron. They brought it back. They also brought back with them a goblin who they've been calling Gabi. Well, Gabi snuck back in and talked to the party and said, hey, I was able to meet with the king. He wants to talk to you guys about potential business opportunities. So eventually the party heads out to Karkolohk, which is the goblin outpost. It's a kind of fortress that they've got situated. Leader of the fortress is actually a gnome who's pretending to be a goblin. He's been there for a long time, and he really just wants to put goblins on the map as not being bad, but it's been really frustrating for the past however many years, as goblins aren't super organized and they can be kind of chaotic. He met with them and he let them know what has been going on. He also talked about business opportunities and just trying to get goblins on the map as not being entirely evil. So the party met with them, had a really good meal, had good conversation. They stayed there the night and then headed back to 10 Towns because Quark is a town speaker. He's promised to see what he can do, and we'll see what happens with the goblins of Karkolohk in the future. My party is now headed to Sunblight, and before they do that, they stopped by old Bitey's Riddle, and this is something that I added. My party really early on got obsessed with this riddle and thought for sure there would be treasure, so we added it. Because I thought they were going to do this really early on, and they leveled up a few times before they did it, I kind of beefed all of the skeletons and everything up quite a bit from what I was originally planning on, but it ended up being a lot of fun. They followed the riddle, followed it up the river. They found behind a waterfall that was frozen this cave entrance where there was a trap. One of the players almost got caught by the trap, but was snapped out of it, out of the charming effect from the statue. There's this beautiful music that's playing. Snapped out of it right before they fell into the hole, and then they ended up fighting a ton of skeletons, and they ended up fighting Necris, who is a kobold that was recruited by Valin Harpel, which will come into play later on in the campaign. The whole purpose of Old Bitey's Riddle in my game is so that Necris can lure people into this cavern where he has a spell set up from the statue that lures them in close. They fall into a 20-foot hole where he can then come and recruit them to be part of his undead army. And it hasn't been going super well, but he does have a few minions, and my party found them to be a little bit of a challenge, which is a lot of fun. And then there was quite a bit of treasure in there. I threw in quite a few of the magic items that are from the book that they hadn't run into in Chapter 1, as well as some of my own creations. And my party really liked it, and it turned out to be a fun encounter that was just added. So if you like that, you can find it on my Notion page, which I'll link in the description below. So that's pretty much where we've been at, and I just want to give one more catch-up on all the characters and kind of what's going on with them before we dive into session prep for Chapter 3, Sunblight. Jack is our herengon bard, and he wants to root out the corruption in the government, and he wants to take down the Order of Oral. I'm trying to give him ties to the Netherese. We talked about that a little bit earlier, and which will eventually provide the party with motivation to head to Yithrin, which is the very last chapter in the book. He met Kara Frostfer, who is the one that we talked about earlier, whose grandmother has ties to the Netherese and was the one that sang the song. Kaima is our human sorcerer, and the last time she ran into Danica, she asked Danica to do some research on hags, and Danica let her know about the Boreas sisters, which is a little hag coven that I have added into the Icewind Dale, who are known to be in the Black Cabin, so that'll be play into that in Chapter 2. We haven't hit Chapter 2 quite a bit, but again, I'm just using the book as basically a source guide, and I'm changing things up. So the Black Cabin is kind of the testing grounds for this coven of the Boreas sisters, who are hags that made some dealings with Kaima's parents so that Kaima could be born. There are some trials inside the Black Cabin that are considered to be very dangerous, so that's future for what's going on with Kaima. Quark is our dwarven cleric, and he is now town speaker for Mead and has been working like crazy on spreading his own unique style of brew throughout 10 towns in an effort to appease his very wealth-focused deity Abathor. So he's been working really hard on swindling and dealing with pretty much everybody he meets, and every tavern owner and every inn owner that he has run into, he's made a deal with about spreading Quark's mead, which has been a lot of fun. Roary is our leonin barbarian, and she is focused right now on saving her dad, who has been trapped in Sunblight by the Duergar. And the reason that they have been trapped by the Duergar is the Duergar are looking for this legendary Yeti weapon that her dad has knowledge of the location, leading to further quests, and I think I'm going to put that in the Cackling Chasm or somewhere like that. I haven't exactly decided where I want to place that from the Chapter 2 locations, but we'll figure that out. Lastly, we have Tavar, and Tavar is our elf ranger, and Tavar is a member of the Arctic Blades who was recruited by Hlyn to figure out who was behind all the Ice Dagger murders. We found that to be Suffolk, who was also a member of the Arctic Blades and was a peer of Tavar during their training periods. I have some ideas for what I want to do with Tavar in the future, maybe like go have them talk to the prisoner in Revel's End or something like that. I'm not 100% sure, but there will be another quest for Tavar in the future, probably using one of the locations in Chapter 2. And that is pretty much it. That gets us all the way caught up. We're going to try and jump back into some prep and recap videos. Again, I kind of have been missing them, and I think I will have time to do so in the future. We'll see. Thank you all so much for watching. I do appreciate it. We'll catch you in the next one.